Our scale for the day is F sharp major. F sharp major has 6 sharps, F, C, G, D, A, E. And the intervals of F sharp major is our tonic is F sharp, major second is G sharp, major third is A sharp, perfect fourth is B, perfect fifth is C sharp, major sixth is D sharp, major seventh is E sharp, and perfect eighth is F sharp. And our scale degrees is tonic is F sharp, supertonic is G sharp, median is A sharp, subdominant is B, dominant is C sharp, subdominant is D sharp, leading tone is E sharp, octave is F sharp. And then the triad chords of this key is our chord 1 is F sharp, A sharp, C sharp from F sharp major. Chord 2 is G sharp, B, and D sharp, which is G sharp minor. Chord 3 is A sharp, C sharp, E sharp with being an A sharp minor. Chord 5 is B, D sharp, F sharp, B major. Chord 5 is a C sharp major, which is C sharp, E sharp, and G sharp. Chord 6 is D sharp, F sharp, A sharp with D sharp minor. And then our chord 7, an E sharp diminished, is E sharp, G sharp, and B natural. So those are the triad chords. I would suggest that you go ahead and try playing the triad chords. They're pretty much your pages already in the scale book that we have you using, but I think you would have fun playing these. So that's that for our scale of the day. What we're going to talk about next is exercises and tips for a flexible bow. So for windshield wipers, what you're going to need is your bow, or you can use a pen as well. This is a great way to practice flexibility, wrist flexibility. So it's a little bit harder with a bow, but you can still do it with a pen. What you're going to need to do is you're going to move your wrist like that. It's great with a bow because that way you have the heaviness of the bow, and you can see how your wrist really is. For this one, be careful that you are relaxed, because if you're tight, this is going to create more tension for you, and it's not going to be pretty. So I would suggest make sure you're relaxed when you're doing windshield wipers, which is a bow exercise. Another way for a flexible bow hold is warm-up. So that's incorporating new warm-up exercises, can be including like bow arm technique. So why is it important to work on your right arm flexibility? Is because having a flexible wrist helps your technique. So bouncing the bow off the string, ricochet, smooth bow changes, articulation, clarity, all that is very important to have a relaxed wrist. Otherwise, it's not going to be smooth, and it's just going to look very choppy, and you're going to be tight as well. Third is being relaxed. If you're tense and tight in your shoulders, you'll be tense and tight in your hands. You can't get a flexible wrist hold if you are tight. The key in having the most flexible wrist is relaxation. How to practice that is to take a deep breath before you start playing your instrument and breathe out, because taking a deep breath releases your shoulders. If you have a relaxed neck and shoulders, your hands and wrists will then be relaxed. So go ahead and try the windshield wipers, and hopefully that will help you have more of a flexible bow hold. What we're going to talk about next is type of learners. We're going to continue where we left off yesterday, and we're going to talk today about aural learners. So aural learning is used to classify those who respond primarily to sound and speech. Unsurprisingly, many musicians are aural learners. Auditory learners generally remember what their teachers say and readily participate in class. So these are also individuals who respond best to things as binaural beats. So, aural learners find that certain music invokes strong emotions, enjoy listening to music in the background while learning, have a good sense of pitch or rhythm, are skilled at oral reports and class presentations, are able to work through complex problems by talking out loud. So for example, a song that helps you remember the alphabetical order of all the states is a way to tap into aural learning skills. So you're an aural learner if you prefer learning through rhythms or tend to use clever rhythms to remember something. So this is how we can learn aurally as a musician. So ways that you can practice as an aural learner, one of the ways is to listen to the piece. A lot of your teachers do tell you listen to the piece, but there's a lot of useful things that can come out of that. So I chose a piece I had never played before, and this is Bach, J.S. Bach Concerto in A minor. So again, I've never played this, but I pulled it up on my computer, and I'm going to listen to how the song goes. I just searched it up on YouTube. All right, so that's a 2-bar phrase, and I'm going to play that for you now. So again, I've never played this piece before, and I just heard it for the first time, and I'm going to play it. That may have not been perfect, but at least I have a general sense of how this piece is supposed to go, especially because the rhythm, first look, this looks like a very complicated piece. But what makes it easier is that it's in tempo is andante, so it's going to be really slow. But we have some 30-second notes in here, and that can, like I said, at first glance just look really complicated, but listening to it, it really doesn't sound bad. It sounds actually pretty doable. So I would always recommend pieces that you don't know how to play, that you listen to it first. The second way that you can learn aurally is to have your teacher or practice with someone. Most of the times your teacher will play the example if you don't know how to do it and you ask your teacher to. It's a great way to learn because your teacher definitely knows how to play that piece. Another way is to have to practice with someone if you have siblings who have played have played longer than you and have played this piece. You can always ask them, how does this go? And they will hopefully be more than happy to show you. Another way that you can practice as an aural learner is to train your ear to hear, to know those pitches. For instance, this is very helpful, especially once it goes up in the positions. I would figure out the notes first. So I chose a piece that I can see it goes up in the positions. Everyone knows B, C, D. D is about this. D would be the 4th finger in the 3rd position. Higher than that, that's something that everyone always needs to refresh their memories. So I know D, and that's E. And then we have D. Then we have F, E, D again, and then E, D, E. Okay, so what I mean by how to train your ear is that, first of all, I wrote down the note name. And if I know that note in the lower octaves, I can find it in the higher octaves. So for instance, first one is an E. So that's how I found that note. Then I can figure out the spot. And then it goes high up again. So we have D, F, E, D, E, D, E. So I'm going to play it all octaves lower. High up. And then going up another octave. So So I did that all without looking at the music, just because I knew the notes. D, F, E, D, E, D, E, lower octave. I played it another octave. And then I'm going the next octave after that. So that's a way, especially when you're going high in the positions, is play, know what the note sounds like, octaves lower. And as you saw, I started 2 octaves lower, so that way I can repeat that in the next octave and then get to the octave that I needed to. So always play something about an octave or 2 lower, and then find those notes when you travel up on the instrument. I mean, you can find any note. If I were to play a G, going up another octave, and let's just throw out 8 out there. Because I know it wouldn't be, because that just sounds off, but, and let's do one more. Let's do C. So I played a bunch of octaves for you there. So, you know, a good way to practice that is start with a note just like I did. I just said C. Let's do C. And then try to find those octaves where the next note would be. So that's how you can practice ear training in a sense, but also know where all the octaves are going to be. So those are ways that you can practice as an aural learner. All right, so our composer of the day is Wagner. So Richard Wagner and Phil Wilhelm Richard Wagner was born in 1813 in Leipzig, Germany. Wagner was a German dramatic composer and theorist whose opera and music had a revolutionary influence on the course of Western music, either by the extension of his discoveries or reaction against them. Wagner went on to become one of the world's most influential and controversial composers. He is famous for both of his epic operas, including the 4-part 18-hour Ring Cycle, as well as his anti-Semitic writings, which means against Jews. After Wagner's death, made him a favorite of Adolf Hitler. So in the 20th century, Adolf Hitler was a fan of Wagner's music and writings, only making Wagner's legacy more controversial. So Wagner's early years were full of artistic and theatrical influences. Even several of his older sisters became actresses and opera singers. Wagner was impulsive and self-centered. He was a negligent student. He often went to concerts and taught himself the piano and composition. He often read the plays of Shakespeare, Goethe, and Schiller. As a young boy, Wagner attended school in Dresden, Germany. He did not show interest in music, and in fact, his teacher said he would torture the piano in the most abominable fashion. But he was ambitious from a young age. When he was 11 years old, he wrote his first drama. And by age 16, he was writing musical compositions. So young Wagner was so confident that some people considered him conceited and self-centered. The New York Times would later write in its obituary of the famous composer, "In the face of mortifying failures and discouragements, he apparently never lost confidence in himself." So after moving to a Prussian city, one of Wagner's works, Des Leversboy, was produced, with Wagner writing both the lyrics and the music. He called his concept, I'm going to try to pronounce it, it's not going to be great, Gutes Kunstwerk, total work of art in German, a method which he frequently used of weaving German myths with larger themes about love and redemption. Shortly after, Wagner had to leave Russia before he finished one of his operas, Residency, to flee creditors and people he owed money to. They hopped on a ship to London and then made their way to Paris, where Wagner was forced to take whatever he could find, including writing vaudeville music for small theaters. Vaudeville music in the United States was pretty much a type of light entertainment consisting of 10 to 15 individuals with unrelated acts, often featuring magicians or acrobats, comedians, trained animals, jugglers, singers, and dancers. So I guess you can say kind of like a circus is what he wrote music for. Wagner was unable to enter Germany for the next 11 years due to his political stances. Wagner wrote the notoriously anti-Semitic Jewishness in music, as well as other criticism against Jews, composers, conductors, authors, and critics. He also wrote opera and drama and began developing what would become his famous Ring Cycle, which consisted of 4 separate operas tied together by leitmotifs. So leitmotif is the recurring theme throughout a musical literary composition associated with a particular person, idea, or situation. So his opera was tied together with 4 separate operas by leitmotifs or recurring musical themes with linked plot elements. So the Ring Cycle was ahead of its time in that it combined literature, visual elements, and music in a way that would anticipate the future of film. Film composers, including John Williams, were inspired by Wagner's use of leitmotifs. Again, leitmotifs is just a recurring theme, tune, or song, part of the song. His work would later influence modern film scores, including those of Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings film series. In 1862, Richard Wagner was finally able to return to Germany. King Ludwig II, a fan of Wagner's works, invited Wagner to settle in Bavaria near Munich and supported him financially. Wagner didn't stay long in Bavaria once it was discovered he was having an affair. So Wagner died of a heart attack on February 13, 1883, when he was at 69 years old, while vacationing in Venice, Italy for the winter. His body was shipped by a gondola and trained back to Bureff, where he was buried. New York Times writer Anthony Tomasini wrote of Wagner in 2005, "How did such sublime music come from such a warped man? Maybe art really does have the power to drive out the best in us." So that's that on Richard Wagner. I will include a link to one of his famous pieces if you want to give it a listen so you can kind of get an idea of the music he wrote. Today's practice goal is to practice your music orally, and hopefully you can find different ways to do so with that, and also find out if you are an oral learner. Well, that's all for today, and we'll see you tomorrow.